The thing that makes you say, I'm going to leave, is when you realize that your partner just doesn't get it.
Every time I went through a breakup, if I went back to that relationship, guaranteed it still didn't work out. So I kind of thought that once something is broken, it's broken, it can't be fixed. Is that applicable to marriage?
Okay, it depends. I mean, some couples should never marry. Some people go into marriages having, in effect, made a bad choice. To be honest, if it turns out that that's what's going on, it's not going to be easy to fix. So, for example, if you've married somebody with a personality disorder, they probably can't do much about it either. So asking them to change or behave differently is probably not going to work. If you marry somebody who's developed an unhealthy set of relationships with the rest of their family, that's probably going to be poison for the whole of your marriage. Some things can't be fixed. Some people, they're just not compatible with the idea of long-term commitment and monogamy or those sorts of things. So if those are your expectations in a relationship and you've managed to marry one of those, then things aren't going to turn out well. I think one of the things you have to decide, preferably before you marry, is whether you are making the right choice. And if later on, you discover that it's a mistake, actually you need to get out as fast as possible.
We tend to, when dating, stay in relationships longer than we should. And we always say that, like, why did I stay so long? But At the same time in a marriage, I don't want to give up too quickly. So how long is too long?
I mean, in a perfect world, we do all our breakups before we get to the point of marrying somebody. In a perfect world, we have sufficient number of relationships in our early life. We develop the skills to pick the right person. But now, if you get into a marriage and realize that actually there are some irretrievable differences here, I think the sooner you get out, the better. And preferably before you make life-changing decisions like children. In a perfect world. Now, in reality, lots of things happen differently, don't they? The strategy I always tend to adopt with people is to say that you should work on both possibilities simultaneously. You should think about how you would manage if you left. You plan a single life, involving co-parenting if necessary. You talk to a lawyer secretly and figure out how the divorce will work. But at the same time, you work hard with your partner at addressing the issues. But now you're in a good place because you are willing to step away. So you will address the issues, you will put them on the table, and you will insist on a full discussion and change. Mm-hmm. Now you do stand a chance of putting a few things right. You get what I mean?
Yes.
If you're not prepared to leave, then you tend to sweep things under the carpet.
If I need to work on myself and I need to fix things going on internally with myself that are affecting this marriage, doesn't that take a long time? How will the marriage survive that?
I think if a couple are working on the problem together, so they're both aware of what they're trying to do, then it can last as long as it needs to. So take an example where suddenly alcohol becomes a problem in a marriage. Maybe people, as the stress built up and work life got too hard and all the rest of it, somebody starts drinking. And then they start saying with their partner, help me, but I'm going to give up. Now, they won't succeed in a week. It might take years before they're properly in control of alcohol again. But because you're working on it together, that's okay. You see where I'm coming from?
Yes.
Another good example is some people, as a consequence of stress, the anger in their personality starts to become an issue. So these people pick a lot of fights, they say the wrong things, they could become abusive and so on. If that's on the table and you're beginning to try and control anger, again, you can tolerate that for a very long time, so long as you're making progress. The thing that makes you say, I'm going to leave, is when you realize that your partner just doesn't get it.
For couples who are working on their marriage, are there any rules that you would recommend that the couple set in place?
I would suggest that the couple agree to be 100% open and honest. So if they are not being open, like one of them's keeping secret money, that really all needs to come out and they need to talk about it. They need to talk about why they've been keeping secrets. And usually that becomes a joint thing. And I can't talk to you about my mother, so I go and see her secretly. You ask each to make it possible for both to be honest. So in other words, if I'm coming home and I'm thinking about something I need to tell my wife and it's a bit embarrassing, And I realize she's going to give me a hard time. Well, I keep quiet, don't I?
Yeah.
So the couple has to get to that place where they can talk to one another about everything and they won't get a hard time. If you can do those two things, then you can move on to the next step, which is to start working on the communication skills. No ambushes, preparation. Choose times when you're not tired or stressed or hungry, so that you stand a chance of having a good conversation. And you make it one where it's a bit like a business meeting. You sit at a table with a cup of tea and a packet of biscuits and a pad of A4 paper, and you problem solve. Now, I mean, when people are doing things like that, as opposed to an ambush at 3 a.m., there's a much better chance that they'll solve the problem.
I think my last question on this would be on counseling. How effective is marriage counseling for couples who are struggling? And what do you do in situations where one partner is not interested in counseling and doesn't believe in it, but still wants to work on the relationship?
One of the biggest advantages of talking to a counselor is that they see thousands of people. So they see the patterns. You walk in telling what feels like a unique story to them, and it's actually, variant number 256. They've seen it all before. So they home in on the issues much faster than an individual on their own. Strangely enough, the pattern of X suggests counseling and Y promptly says don't believe in that is almost universal. It's very rare for a couple to say jointly, let's go to counseling.
Really? Oh.
Yeah. So it's the norm. And the best approach is for one of them to go on their own the first time and then go back to their partner and said, well, I had a really interesting time and I think you should go and tell your side of the story. Oh, people can't resist that. So it's extremely unusual for one to start and the other one not to join in.
I don't know why we tend to think it's going to be a very uncomfortable, scary experience. And I can say I left every session with you feeling just lighter and hopeful. And it was such a wonderful experience. So I would definitely recommend counseling to anyone watching. And I think that you have shed a lot of light and insights and given a lot of hope that it is possible. It is possible to get to the other side.
Now, these things aren't always hopeless. That sometimes you've got some guy who's horribly dominating in your marriage and he suddenly finds that his wife is confronting him and he becomes as meek as a little lamb. So it's not automatic that, if you're in a bad situation, you have to part, but there will be cases when you must.
Well, I just want to say thank you, first of all, for having this chat with me. And also thank you for all the great work that you're doing, all the couples that you're helping along the way. And I'm sure people who are watching, who are going through their own struggles will reach out to you and see the benefits as well.
I would say to people, don't be put off by the fact that a lot of counselling now is being done online. Actually welcome it and explore and have a go.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Okay.